arguably the best in North America, Falkbuilt. So thank you for being here. It's going to be a riveting show. Before I get started, I just want to do a few housekeeping InterGen plug items. We've got cards around the room with a QR code. These cards are all about how do you build a profile on the InterGen app. The InterGen app is all about connecting fast-growing companies and executive advisors that really want to spend their time on a pro bono basis helping companies grow. So if you'd like to be an advisor or you're a company not on the app yet, take one of these cards and sign up and build your profile and get matched and start dating. This event would not be possible without a few people. I wanted to thank Avatar Innovations in the building for providing us the space this morning, as well as CBRE. CBRE is the Breakfast Club sponsor for this fall and are kindly sponsoring the breakfast. They can't be here this morning, and so I'm going to be CBRE and give you a short commercial. As Canada's leader in commercial real estate services, we provide unmatched insight into the Calgary market, giving investors, owners, and occupiers the competitive advantage they need to stay ahead. So that's CBRE. What else do I have here? I also want to just acknowledge the team. Sandy, our CEO, I'm not sure if she's here yet. Tony from who you hear from marketing in the back, and Dagan, also our product manager in the back there. And you all met Emily at the front checking you in. We've also got 2 venture leads here. So if you're a company or you're an advisor and want to get connected to companies, Jody's right here, one of our venture leads, and Jared is in the back there. So they got you covered. Before we kick it off, I want to introduce our board chair, Brian Fileski, and Brian's going to be doing the introduction for Mogens Smed. So Brian, welcome.
Don't know whether we need this PA system here with such a nice intimate audience. And speaking of audiences, I got to take my hat off to the InterGen team. Last night we had 150 people at the Hyatt for a great session with Showpass, and now we have you good people here. The constituency and the audience that InterGen has proudly built is very touching to us and helping develop the innovation community in Calgary, together with a lot of other people. And it's only because of our great team, as Cal mentioned, Sandy Gilbert, Cal himself, Tony, Emily, Jared, Jody, wonderful team, and it's always teamwork. You all know that. It's my pleasure to introduce Mogens Smed to you this morning. I doubt that it's an introduction because most of you know Mogen. He's bigger than life, without a doubt. I think I've only known Mogen for about 55 years, and it's hard to believe we must both have been in diapers because we're barely older than 55 years. But Mogen is a person who I've admired for those 55 years. He models grit, tenacity, perseverance, resilience, and success. He's a big team builder, and we know that he started with Smed Industries, then he went to Dirt, and then he very proudly says he was fired in 2018. And rather than fold his tent at 70 years of age, he said, guess what? To his wife, Nikki, we're going to start again. And they did. And today, Falkbuilt has got over 500 employees. It does work all over the world. And it's a testimony to grit, resilience, and perseverance, and a loyal team. That resilience, starting at the age of 70 with a new enterprise and achieving remarkable success, resulted in his getting honored as one of the top 7 over 70 last year, which Kim McConnell was the chair of. And we proudly celebrated Mogen as a model of entrepreneurship, resilience, tenacity, and success. So for that, we're very proud to have Mogen as a part of the family. Have to say, Mogen and I often share on a personal basis. I had the privilege of being involved in a corporate campus development in San Antonio, Texas, starting in 1994. And we were building a build-to-suit facility, 100,000 square feet for GM Financial. So we're down there inspecting the site, talking to the construction managers, so forth. And he said, "Oh, you're from Calgary." "Yes, we're from Calgary." "God, we got this crazy guy we're dealing with. He outbid and outperformed every firm in America on our interior construction." I knew immediately who that was. Mogens Smed, a proud reputation and penetrating markets all over the world. That's who we have the honor of hearing from today. And the other thing that I think that's wonderful about Mogens, he always punctuates his discussion with thanks to the people who lifted him up, the great mentors in his life. And he says thanks by helping lift up others. And so without further, and I got to say, Kai and Leah, his mom and his dad, would be looking in very proud of Mogens Smed. Mogens Smed.
Right. Thanks for that riveting intro, Brian. All right, so we're going to get right into it. We'll be done around, let's say 9:45, and then we'll have some time for Q&A and wrap up around just after 10 o'clock. So I hope that's okay. So Mogens, welcome. Here's my first question. 60 years in construction and 2 exits later, you're in company number 3. Who's Mogens?
Well, first of all, we came to Calgary in 1952 from Denmark. And we've been in Calgary, my mother and my father, and is it on? Do I need? Okay. Is that better? Okay, we came to Calgary in 1952 from Halifax, Pier 21. My mother and my father, I was the oldest at 4, and my brother and my sister didn't speak a word of English, $32 in the train tickets to Calgary, Alberta. Reason we left Denmark, my father was a cabinet maker in Denmark, is Denmark is a socialist country, just like we're getting to be here in Canada at the time. And they realized that there's no opportunity for us, the kids in Denmark, and that there would be lots of opportunity in Canada. And we came to Calgary, and I can tell you, we've been here since 1952. It's the best city in the whole darn world. I've been all over the world. There's no better place. There's no better people, and, you think about what we have here. As we speak, we have a big client in from Seattle. We had here today, as we speak, we had Visa in from Colorado yesterday. We had Pokemon here 3 weeks ago coming in here, and we show them Calgary, and we're always proud of it. Not so sure that we bring them downtown. We take them to Banff, maybe take them fishing on the Bow River, things like that. But regardless, it's a great city. And what's great about this city is we don't laugh at failure. We don't laugh at getting knocked down. We so many times we've gone through such hard times. In 1982, we went bankrupt, and my father died from the stress of the bankruptcy at 60 years of age. But we had so much help. You know what I mean? Getting back on our, you still can't hear it? Pardon me?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, all right. I'm not used to using a mic, but anyway, regardless. And it was amazing. Companies like Esso, people, friends, and family that helped us get back on our feet. And that was my first mentor, was my landlord. His name was Steve Doodlezak. And he told me, he said, "Mogens, money is round. It'll come back to you." And sure enough, that company that went broke, they paid us $1 million to take it back 5 years later. So, and that you couldn't have done it in any other city in the whole world. Same thing with all the energy companies here, how supportive they've been of us over the years, and then the community in general. So there's no better place. One last thing I'll say, when I hear all this thing about immigrants, it makes me sick. I am an immigrant. I was an immigrant. I used to get beat up every day in grade 1 and 2 because I didn't speak very good English, hardly any. I was Danish. So that prejudice has always been around. Our factory, we had 6 people February 2019. We have 550 now. 400 are immigrants that have never worked in our business. And because of, technology and because of their willingness to work, that's where we are today. We've built a business. We're not profitable yet. We're just getting there. But at the end of the day, we couldn't have done it without the immigrants.
Thanks, Mogens. Before we jump into the technology part of your company, maybe if you want to give the audience a little summary on what does Falkbuilt do?
Pretty well everything. No, well, it's what we've always been. We've always done the interiors of buildings, primarily office interiors. Because it's been the one that's sort of been most challenging. We've been doing what we call offsite prefabricated construction for 50 years. In fact, the very first insulated precast building in all of North America was right here in Calgary, Alberta, the Lanwary building, the old Alberta Government Telephones building. So offsite prefab for the exterior buildings has been around forever. Every curtain wall here, all the steel structures, all of that has always been offsite. But the interiors have always mostly been done on site. And it's because it's so darn complicated, what they're doing. So it's still, to this day, off-site prefab for interiors has failed. We've had some good success. Our old company, Dirt, did $360 million in our last year in that business there. But that's just scratching the surface of a $100 billion opportunity. So we do the interiors, and now we've taken it to a whole different level. For instance, with another great company in Calgary is Sprung. We did a homeless shelter in Reno, Nevada for 550 people. We're doing Mr. Beast for those of us. Most of us are too old to know who the hell he is, but he's a YouTube billionaire. We're doing 50,000 square feet for them in Greenville, North Carolina. We do a lot of hospital work. We just finished a maternity hospital in Kuwait. We do also what's called autonomous lanes. And I think this is a good example of that. It's not about the labor, it's about the efficiency that technology can bring. And these autonomous lanes is that you go in there with your credit card, you walk in, you get your hot dog or your beer or whatever, and you walk out. And companies like Amazon, companies like MasterCard, we've installed 71 of them all over the world. In Berlin, in Edinburgh, Scotland, we did a mining site in Chile. I shouldn't say this in front of everybody because we didn't have the moral courage to turn on the business, but we are doing one for the Edmonton Oilers. I'm sorry. Okay, that's all. Perfect. Okay. So we do anything. That's what technology does. If you come to our factory, you'll see over 20,000 distinct pieces. There's no way you could know whether they were right or they're wrong. It's all digitally identified. And that includes right from the fabrication onto shipping and onto the job site. And right now, we're the only ones in the world that are doing it.
Very cool. So going into the technology of your business, you have something called Echo Software, and I frame this as the operating system that runs your cradle to grave on the shop floor. How does the Echo Software give you a thin edge of the wedge to driving the growth of your business?
Well, that's exactly where the opportunity lies. One of the lessons I learned early in life, I was maybe 22 years old, and my father told me, he says, Mogens, the key to success is having people smarter than you working with you, not for you, with you. And he says, Mogens, you're awfully lucky. You've got the whole world to choose from. But there happens to be a co-founder, Barry Loberg, who is an absolute genius in technology and all that. And he was the one that developed our software for our previous business. And remember, we're in an industry, the most inefficient business in the whole world is construction. It just is. That's why we're paying 3 times as much as we were just even 5 years ago. That's why it's taken 3 times as long, which is exactly what creates the opportunity. And they are reluctant to embrace any type of technology. There's no technology, none in the construction industry to speak of, certainly not an end-to-end solution. We're making clients make a decision based on no information, certainly no reliability on what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. And that's what we've done is we've taken it and we've gone from desktop application, which is the rest of the construction industry, and doing it all in the cloud. So we give our clients a full experience, that they can walk through their darn space and it's connected direct in the cloud to our manufacturing. That's really how the technology works. And it has a huge advantage as far as a cost point of view. With our old system, we gave them something but we had 74 people managing it. Something as simple as a product introduction or a price release would take us thousands of hours. And we had 74 people. They still do, maintaining that software. We have 14, and it's like a Tesla. We do it overnight. You know, we can introduce products overnight. We can introduce new pricing overnight. Doesn't matter what the solution is.
Very cool. Thanks for that. I'm told you don't believe in business planning. So tell us how you've had 2 successful companies and a third now, and how do you operationalize the vision into the plan without a business plan in between?
Well, first of all, nobody reads them. And that includes the MBAs from Harvard that are doing the financing. I've seen it when they go into a room so what does this thing say? They don't read it. You know, they don't. Anybody that works, you run your business with your nose. You don't run it with your eyes or your ears. You run it with your nose and your instinct. And the only 3 things that matter in business are, number 1 is your reputation, number 2, your experience, you know, and number 3, your relationships. That's how you run your business. And that includes not just with your customers, but with the people you work with, your suppliers, your shareholders, all of those. So as far as doing a business plan, if someone's going to invest in us, we've been raising capital in spite of everything, and they're betting on whether we can do what we say we can do. The whole key to being in a business is to have the right idea, you know, based on whatever your experience is, and then do whatever it takes to get there.
Great. You mentioned capital. What was the sequence of the capital raise trajectory to get you to where you are today, just roughly speaking?
Well, if you notice, Calgary is hardly the hotbed of construction and manufacturing. You know, in fact, if you look at how far away we are from our markets, you know, so you don't have the financial community here is focused almost 100% on the energy business, a little bit on the technology, certainly not to the scale. I mean, you know, you see the success of what Benevity did here, raising money, but he didn't raise the money in Calgary. He raised it everywhere else in his business and all that. So it's been extremely difficult raising capital. Even for me, yes, absolutely, because they know the money's going to go for a ride in the beginning. That's no question about it. And remember, the one thing that's true in life, nobody likes a new idea, especially if it's a good one. And, you know, and it's the truth, you know, and the construction industry is really the most reticent in embracing new ideas. They really are. And we're in that business, which is where our opportunity lies. But it's failed in the past, any attempt of the type of thing that we're doing here. So
Right,
it's been,
yeah.
the pandemic did not help, that was for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about growth now. You've got something called factory direct branches. What are these and how do you set them up?
Well, that's one of the great things that because of our technology in the past, our previous businesses have had to have our own sales organization, 92 all over the darn world. We had our own showrooms in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. We had to staff them. All in all, it costs us $2 million a month to do that. Now we're able to take that and because of our technology, we're able to have our distribution do it. So we have showrooms that we don't own in Mumbai, India, in Dubai, in Jeddah, in Riyadh, throughout North America. The whole key is, and by the way, we've never sold direct in Calgary, Alberta. We've always had distribution because distribution and marketing and sales cost money. And to get those people in the regional areas that, first of all, give you the credibility in that area and will invest in that area for it. And they're the ones that provide the services in what we do. So that's real important. And again, the relationships that we've had over the years, yeah.
Great. Good. Your talent pool, that's a really integral part to your culture and the growth and supercharging towards where you want to go. 71% of your employees are part of the ownership program. How do you structure that, and what's your vision around how employees participate in ownership?
Well, in the beginning, you know, lots of people, they already had a job. And the one thing we're not going to do is go out there and solicit them to come and work for us, to walk away from a paycheck, guaranteed paycheck, as opposed to coming to a startup. You know, so when they came, one of the incentives was, along with paying a fair salary, and I guarantee you, we've never laid off. My father never laid off. We don't lay off people. You know, I think about, I can't help it. We're close to the Encana building. They had me come and speak there about building a culture in the business after they just chopped up 2,000 employees and all that, right? How I was supposed to acknowledge the brilliance of that board and their leadership of $300 million in costs that they had cut that should have been gone in the first place. And they got a whole bunch of money for their own stupidity in that regard. So, you know, you can't be rewarding that. So having recruiting talent, part of it was we gave them stock, you know, stock options at the beginning and 3-year earn out on it. Yeah.
Very cool. Talking on the people function still, you've gone from 6 to 500 people in a few years, or 500 plus now. How do you shit test when screening for new hires? Because everybody comes into the interview, they're in their best behavior. I work hard, I'm smart, da da da. And sometimes you get people petering off on day 3 of the job.
Well, first of all, nepotism reigns supreme in our business. Let's be honest. I mean, we pay more than a McDonald's and all that, but people working in our factory start out at $22 to $24 an hour. They can't live on $22 to $24 an hour. But when there's 4 or 5 of them living in a home making that, that's $100 an hour. And by the way, that's been around forever. If you want to take a look at other cultures in the world besides ours, you know, they make it work. And so when you're in a digital process like we are, we can quickly identify if it works or it doesn't work. We also work 4 on and 4 off. So our people work 4 12-hour shifts, then another group comes in. So we manufacture and ship 84 hours a week. So the husband can work 1 shift, the wife can work another shift, or their kids can work with us. And so as far as identifying whether they're hard workers or not, we really don't know until we get into the process. I will say the women are way better workers than the men for several reasons. Number one, they're smarter. You know what I mean? They darn well are. And second of all, they're more organized. And over half the people on our floor are women, and including in the leadership positions.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, switching gears from people to environment. Falkbuilt exploits ESG as a competitive advantage, and you differentiate yourself as offsite versus onsite construction. That's my question here. Tell us more about why ESG matters to your company and, more importantly, to your customer when choosing you as a potential vendor.
It always has mattered. You know, I'm from Denmark. 90% of the people in Denmark don't have a darn car. You know, but go to a place like New York City. 90% of the people in New York don't have a car. You know, there's a place called Arco Santi. Some of you may know it. It's 70 miles north of Phoenix. And a guy named Paolo Solari that worked together with Frank Lloyd Wright, he developed this community. And his vision was that you don't need a car. You don't need to spend 2 hours going to and from work. You want to be together in your community, you know, with your family and your friends, and everything needs to be right there. If we had pursued his vision, just think about the trillions of dollars, the real income that would be back in the hands of the people. Think of the trillions of gallons of gas that wouldn't have been spent instead of that urban sprawl that you see down in Phoenix, right beside his vision, because we had all that space at the time. By the way, there's a community coming in Calgary right now that's coming with Jay Westman down by the Bull River that's going to emulate a lot of that. He's already started it up there in Mahogany and that, and we're working together with him, doing some digital things for him, helping them. And we're not going to be building any of it, but we're finally figuring it out that that's what we got to have for the future.
Great. This whole, how do you find customers is InterGen. We see probably 500-600 companies a year, tech, not startup, but scale up. But they always seem to have this, major issue around, I've got 10 customers, how do we get the next 10? And they're just, there's a big mind block for them. How have you been able to generate, gone from 0 to 360 million in 5-6 years? I mean, that's a substantial hockey stick.
Well, when I come back from a business trip, my wife says, "Who's the poor victim that was sitting on the plane beside you?" But for the love of God, you got to get out on the road and you got to be. I was in New York last week. Tom and I'll be in Denver and Indianapolis and Houston the following week and all that. It's a face-to-face business. I never take a online call. Social media, we use it for advertising and that's it. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm a cab driver. I'll be driving. I drove the people back to the airport yesterday. I drive them up to Banff. It's still, when we entertain, all our entertaining is in our own home. We have a way of doing it. And so it takes years. If nothing else, I'm old and I've got lots of relationships in the market, right?
Yeah, yeah. Why do people choose Falkbuilt when they're thinking about interior construction?
Well, first of all, it's less money. Second of all, it's much, much faster. And number three, it's far more reliable than the conventional construction process. I think MNP's in this building. Have done work for MNP in this building here. We're doing the largest job in Canada right now, Equitable Bank down in Toronto, 11 and a half floors for them. Why do they come to some hicktown company from Calgary, Alberta?
Yeah, why?
Well, because it's exactly what I'm telling you. Yeah. You know what I mean? We have the reputation from before. Mattamy. We did Mattamy's corporate headquarters. They're building that big development by the airport. When they step on top of a dime, they can tell you whether it's heads or tails. And we did a big job for them out. They moved from a high rise into an industrial building. I remember the guy saying to me, he says, how can one of your effing doors cost $2,000? I can get one at Home Depot for $190. And I said to him, but let me ask you a question. Do you want to be in the same shit that you provide to your customers? He says, you have a point. It's much better. That's all right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So the factory direct branches in Calgary are supplying you with the opportunities like MNP.
Yes, they're the ones that are out there in the market regionally. We have over 1,000 people all over the world that are out there selling for us every day that are not on our payroll. Yeah.
Okay. And that's all they do are a Falkbuilt rep?
No, some of them actually are associated with the furniture line. They've been in the market for 30 or 40 years in the market, so they're associated with one of the big furniture manufacturers. It could be Steelcase, Hayworth, Herman Miller. No, yeah.
And so in MMP, can they do their own interior design, or do they sub that out, or do you supply interior design?
We work together with architects and design. We're big believers in architecture and design. But we also realize that we need to support them with design support services in the pre-construction because it's a new way of doing things. So we got to help them. And, we live in a society, it's unbelievable. These designers get paid nothing. It's criminal. So do the architects. But now we're giving them a process that empowers them and makes them much, much more effective. And they get to spend their time being creative and developing solutions for their clients.
Right. And so the Echo software integrates with their design software.
Exactly. They don't have to, all the industry standard software.
Right. And are you supplying the architects and design people, or are they finding their own people and collaborating on the Echo ecosystem?
We give them the database in their software that allows them to specify and to design it in ours for their submittals, for the building permit, design development, all of that.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned Barry, your co-founder.
Yes.
He says it was hard to sell Echo to someone that didn't know they needed it. And this is the proverbial problem in startup mode. You're trying to sell something to somebody that is supposedly supposed to solve their problem, but they don't know that they have that problem sometimes. And if they do know they have that problem, they're not convinced that your solution is the right answer to the problem.
And here's our answer. And Stephen Jobs, much as I didn't like him as a human being, was very smart and understanding. Number one, he said there's a common denominator between all overnight successes. It takes at least 20 years. But the one thing he said, and he did have some humility about him, he said, I'm standing in front of you and everyone in this room has never made the amount of mistakes that I have as it relates to technology. The biggest mistake I've ever made in technology is designing a fancy software, a fancy technology, and trying to shove it down the market's throat. So now we design a solution. We find out where the problem is, and then we solve their problem and design the software. That's what we've done that's completely unique. We've built developing a software with the AI-based, cloud-based and all that, but we've had it in conjunction with our fabrication. And the fact that we've been able to build a business like we have in 5 years is 100, and using unskilled people, and that is a testimony to the power of the technology. Now we developed a real technology that has an application, and in fact, now we're getting ready to take it out to other companies in the construction industry, including general contractors, developers, certainly other fabricators, even our competitors that they want it, we'll sell it to them. Yeah.
Switching gears now to AI and ML. Everyone's talking about it. So this is running in parallel with a software called Revit. How do you leverage AI and ML to give you additional competitive advantage on top of having a software platform?
Well, remember, there's AI plus AI, artificial intelligence plus actual intelligence. And there's all kinds of fancy software out there and all that, but if it doesn't have a practical application, it just doesn't work. So by us embracing that, you can't ask an architecture and design firm to throw away their existing technology and buy a new one. No one's going to do that. So what we do, the platform that we built integrates completely with, in this case, a Revit is the design tool of choice in this industry, but we could work within AutoCAD or any of the other design tools, and we integrate it into our Echo software, making the decision. We reduce, sometimes saving thousands of hours in the decision-making process, certainly hundreds of hours, and allowing the designers and the architect to create the space and do where they provide real value for their clients, as opposed to reviewing cotton-picking technical drawings, right?
Right. So does the AI help them render up potential scenarios of how the interior could look, or are they still relying on actual intelligence for that?
That's actual intelligence.
Okay.
When working with designers and architects, if they could be allowed to do it, they're giving you part of their soul. That's what they're doing. Artificial intelligence has no soul.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got about 80, 90 people in the room today, all from different walks of life, investors, entrepreneurs, InterGen business advisors. How do you think this community and our broader community that's not here today can be helpful to Falkbuilt?
Well, it's amazing how many people don't even know who the hell we are. And people say, well, why aren't you selling more? I said, well, you got to meet our salespeople. Then you'll understand they keep it a big darn secret, right, in that regard. But we're out there we'll tell our story any day. And we welcome people into our factory all the time to come by and see what we're doing. Our motto is real simple. People and culture, number one. Shareholders, number two. There will be no number three if you don't have one and two, which is customers. That's just the way it is. And loyalty isn't earned. It's not isn't bequeathed, rather, it's earned. If you don't demonstrate loyalty, and you can bet, in deference to our financial people, it's easy to be short-term thinking, and save, a few $100,000 by laying off some people. But then when the work comes, you're not ready. And you've got to demonstrate that loyalty. It's so important. And it hasn't been easy this time with the pandemic and everything else. But that's the key to success, is having a loyal, strong team of people.
How do you create loyalty? That's like, 20 years ago, you could foster that. Today, people are sometimes so fickle and looking for the next thing because it's available on your phone.
Well, I don't think that, I think that where it's not available is companies that haven't demonstrated loyalty to the people. We're seeing that in the technology business, where people like Google are paying people $400,000 or $500,000 a year and giving them big stock options and everything. And what they've ended up doing is working themselves out of a job. We have our Mumbai branch. He was visiting his son in New York, and with 4 of his friends that have gone and taken very, very extensive technology courses, and none of them can get a job now because they're not available. So you demonstrate loyalty by, number one, you got to show them that the way that you treat them. Like I missed it in my past companies. I swear to God this time that we're going to have better bathrooms for the people in the factory than we are in the office. Little things like that. We certainly make sure that we cater to them properly. We sell walls, but there isn't a single office in our company. I sit at a sit-stand desk right at the very front. You know, that way I catch them if they're going home earlier, they come in late, things like that. But when I'm never around, but anyway, but you know, you gotta be with the people. You can't just be sitting in your ivory tower and isolated.
Right, right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about mentorship. You've done it both ways. I think you've been mentored,
Yeah.
but you're also doing a lot of mentoring.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the impact of mentorship and surrounding yourself with the right people as you were growing your first and second company, and now you're doing a lot of you're reversing the role.
Absolutely. But it's funny how my mentors were people from the past. I had the let's say the entertainment value, not necessarily the privilege to be on the Big Rock board, together with Ed McNally and Clay Riddell and J.C. Anderson, all of them dumb as foxes, you know what I mean? They'd be giving each other a job, and here's Ed McNally, for instance, was a lawyer till he was 60, and he starts manufacturing a brewery company, you know, and we got to be great friends and all that, and I'll never forget his final statement when he won Entrepreneur of the Year award. His final statement says, "Remember, when everybody tells you you can't do it, that's the very first step to getting there." You know, and he did it. You know, and I'm adamant that Big Rock would be doing better today if he was still alive, because after he left, the culture completely changed. And if you want to talk about back to Steve Dudelsack, here's a man who escaped the ghetto in Warsaw, you know, and he was the one that sort of helped motivate me through, you know, the difficult times of the bankruptcy and all that. And he had his own problems. He had two buildings down in Denver, one Denver place and Stellar Plaza, that were underwater, and he had a big battle with the Bank of Commerce on the whole thing. And he ended up saving the bank from their own stupidity in this case here, and they end up selling it to the Bass brothers for 200 million more than they wanted to call his loan on. Certainly people like listening to people like Clay Riddell and J.C. Anderson, who, by the way, as a common denominator, they never got out of their lane. Even today, when you see companies like Tourmaline and Paramount, they're run the same way they ran them, you know, 20 or 30 years ago. Other oil companies, the oil companies that seem to be doing better are not necessarily smaller in dollars, but smaller. They've managed to stay in their lane and not get carried away with themselves. They treat their people right, and they set themselves apart from the other companies that are out there. Yeah.
Just taking a picture that way.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask us, if I get stock options in a company, in a startup company, how do I make money? Do you want to walk us through that
Sure.
waterfall a little bit?
Our three businesses, the first two, Smed was on the TSE and the NASDAQ. And the Dirt was on the TSE when I was there. But it's this, and I learned from a guy named Andrew Moore, who's now the, embarrassing for me, a dear friend, and he was my president for 8 years, was Canada's top banker. And like he says, Mogens, we're not that good. It's just that everybody hates the big banks, so we get lots of business. But he taught me one thing. He says, what you do, even when you're a private company, you create a gray market. And so people are buying shares in the gray market. So that kind of will establish a price for when you do IPO, if you decide to IPO, or you decide to sell part of the business in that type of thing. So you're establishing it in people that right now we have a gray market, and we have people that have sold stock, they need some money, they're selling the stock, and it could be industry people, or it could be private individuals or corporations. So yeah, that's how you do it, so that they can get liquidity. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. Because I think getting liquidity, especially if you're not making a lot of money, when you do need money and you got something that's, in the form of money, but you can't cash it, becomes complicated if you don't have a free market.
But my first goal is is that everybody can get some liquidity. That's my first goal. It's taken a little longer. It always does, but than I'd hoped for. But that's the key. We've demonstrated that in the past, and we intend to do that this time too as well. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Closing question, Mogens. Biggest thing you've learned on your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I've learned several things, and I have to make a comment. You were saying about me being a mentor, and I talk to lots of people about it, and my first thing is I kind of try to talk them out of it. No, and that's the truth, especially if they're married and they've got kids, because of the number one, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, then you better not be a worrier. You know what? Because the stress will kill you. The impact on your family, dealing with all the things on the day-to-day challenges and all that type of thing. And if you think that you're going to get a big paycheck in the beginning, forget it. And if you think you're going to get away with not putting everything on the line, forget it. And that puts a lot of stress on certainly someone that has a family. I was lucky because I started as an entrepreneur before I was married. And as a result, I just got into the business and ended up here in that regard. But I would say and remember, 90% of businesses, at least, they do fail for a lot of reasons. And I tell them, I said, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, get ready. Don't worry. Don't worry about whether you're going to run out of money, because you're going to. Don't worry about whether you're going to make mistakes, because you're going to make hundreds of mistakes, if not thousands of mistakes. So don't worry about the inevitable. If you've got a real vision and you believe in that vision, sooner or later, and you've got the tenacity, you will get there. And that's just the way it is. And my last comment, being an entrepreneur, in spite of all these things, is great for a marriage. You're never liquid long enough for her to make her move. That's why it is. Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Is that your biggest learning
What?
as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, those are my
Yeah.
lessons. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Mogens, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure having this chat with you.
All right.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we got a few minutes for Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? There's one in the back, there's one in the front.
First of all, thank you so much for all the advice and all the insight, especially around corporate cultures, systems, and processes and your success. My name is George Lorimer. I'm with Haven Housing. We've just raised a couple $1 million to 3D print houses. That being said, we're newer to the industry. Would you have any kind words of advice that you're willing to offer the entrepreneurs in the audience?
So are you going to do it in the concrete 3D printing? Is that what you're doing?
You got it. We're starting in affordable housing and industrial foundations.
Okay. And so have you got the equipment already here in Calgary?
The equipment's in the States. We're having the workers trained as we speak.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we've been seeing that coming, and, the whole movement towards volumetric, offsite prefabricating it's definitely there. One of the challenges, of course, that, especially when everybody likes to point out the failures, and they're all stepping stones to, if I had known, or we could have had the technology 40 years ago that we have today, it would be, but everything is current. So you've got a new idea there. There are some successful installations, I understand, out there and all that, but the hard thing is going to be for you will be, again, a couple of $1 million ain't going to be enough. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
It's and so it's a matter of getting them in there and taking from step to step. And we're always in the beginning. We're always going to be raising money till we're cash flow positive, and it won't be easy here in Calgary. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So sorry, I thought I had good news for you.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I heard with the Peter Lougheed Center that you guys built with sprung structures during COVID, that was built very quickly, and then it was repurposed when it was taken down. Can you talk about the repurposing that Falkbuilt does?
Well, they never took it down. They end up you're using it still today, but we built the thing together with Sprung and Canada Construction and ourselves. We built the whole damn thing, 63 ICUs in 3 weeks. And they're still using it today. We did one for the which nation? No, the guys here in for Siksika, and we built it for pandemic. They're still using it, but they're using it for battered women.
And isn't repurposing part of Falkbuilt?
That's the whole idea. That was the whole idea, that with this one here, that we can convert that. We showed them how we can convert it into a full ICU or operating room. Absolutely. Everything is totally sustainable in what we're doing here. They've never taken it to the next step. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hi, Jeanette Anderson with Maturepreneur World, and you obviously are a poster child for never too late to get going on a new venture and to keep going. What advice do you have for those who are 55 plus and hashtag not done by a long shot? Because that's a market that is overlooked and needs inspiration and examples like you. So what advice do you have for older entrepreneurs?
Well, first of all, if it's work, don't do it. I have fun, and that includes dealing with the challenges of construction. Our motto is, if you're not 100% satisfied, you can have the whole damn job for nothing. However, if it goes perfect, we're going to have to charge you double. It's never going to be perfect. So you're going to wake up every morning knowing that you're going to have either opportunities or challenges to deal with every day. You can't, back to a business plan, we can't even plan a day, let alone the saying that a 5-year plan. That's for darn sure, right? And the last thing I will say, I've got lots of friends. We have lots of friends who are, they've retired and they're regretting it, because, they lost their purpose. They've lost their community, and they're calling us up to go and visit them and wherever they are. And God bless them. They deserve it and all that. But, you can see that, they're aging more than the ones that are staying active. Okay. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Mogens, thanks for your comments, and I really appreciate it. I have a question. I'm a construction insurance broker, and one thing I'm trying to understand, in fact, that's the main reason I'm here, is to understand how a cyber crime or cyber attack event can interrupt a construction, project.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if we got cyber attacked, and we have, one thing is that Barry Loberg is an absolute genius and part of real technology people. They live in paranoia. But remember, we've been able to build our technology from the ground up. So we've been able to put all the safeguards in place, which companies with older existing technologies haven't been able to do that. And for us, if we ever got cyber attacked and they were effective, it would shut us down.
What does shutting down imply? How could it really affect you?
Well, we wouldn't be able to ship. We wouldn't be able to manufacture. So where you see that but it wouldn't affect general contractors as much, but certainly affect us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike Martins with the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. We represent 4,500 companies construction companies across the country. And innovation's a big topic. I really appreciated your comments that construction industry is a laggard in terms of adopting innovation and increasing productivity. You mentioned they're laggards in adopting technology. Do you have specific technologies that you think are particularly low-hanging fruit that are just being ignored that need to be adopted?
Well, the truth is it's not there, but the cloud will change it. The key is to use the technologies that are already there. So you mentioned, and we see these general contractors like Alice Don trying to build an offsite prefab factory in Southern Ontario, blow $50 million, a disaster. But again, there's actual intelligence. Who else is going to buy from you? You're not going to be selling your stuff to PCL or to Leadcore, so you got one customer. The same thing happened with a company called Skender, or what about Katera, $2 billion bankruptcy, them trying to raise their leg a little higher than the other dog. That's not what works, because now you're competing. What you want to be is competing. And if you can find a way, you look at the construction industry, it's unbelievable. The biggest software in the construction industry is Procore. It's a project management software. And it shows up when the hearses arrived. The job is already designed. It's already costed. It's actually already scheduled. They're just darn good at selling. you know, because and it's a tool that just manages already a broken process. It has to be end to end, and that's what we do is end to end. And by the way, we always have, like right now, the client that's up from Seattle, we have the general contractor here to show them how we can empower. We're not their competition. And by the way, I have my own construction company. I've had it for 50 years, you know, so, you know, we know, I know what we work with, and in doing, and we only do it for ourselves the last 20 in that regard. Yeah.
Hi, Chantal Hamburg with Scotia Wealth. So my question is, who is your biggest inspiration and role model that, you know, from the ground up that's driven you?
Well, here we are. Later, I would say it's my mother. You know what? Because when my father died in 1982, 60 years old, her attitude of, you know, now we get going again. You know, and we don't dwell on the past. We move forward, and she's always been a very. She lasted till she was 92, and she was always very positive. And I think having a positive outlook, not being a Panglossian optimist, but being positive is so darn important. You know, you start getting negative, everybody around you will be negative, and you know, and you accept, you know, what the challenges are, and you respond to them.
Hey, Philip Burns with Tech Thursday. My question is around the housing affordability issue. Just curious your opinion on how we're going to solve it. If it's a step change around technology or permitting, or yeah, curious your opinion.
Well, we got to change our habits. You know, go up there. There's nothing more disgusting than they're going to one of these developments and seeing 6 feet of space being wasted between the houses because we don't want to attach to the other ones like every other place in the world does. You know, we need to think about building communities that are, you know, far more compact. Why do we have to have, by the way, here I'm living in a 6,000 square foot house or whatever the hell it is. It's for the dogs and our clients, but regardless anyway, and our grandchildren, but regardless, we have to start thinking about the footprint that we're building. Why do we have to have, you know, 3,000 square foot houses and all that? And we're going to see it more. We're going to see families staying together a lot longer. We're going to see more than just one couple in a home. That's for darn sure. Because that's the economic reality moving forward. And we should start building properly. You know, the way that we build today, the materials that we use are garbage. You go to jail in Europe if you try to build like that. We can be no, I'm serious. I was staying in England and in Wales, rather, in a house that was built 250 years ago. Aside from some windows, it was in perfect shape. They build it to last. We don't build for sustainability here. We build for the lowest price. That's what we do, and we end up building junk. Yeah.
I think collectively we found Mogens exceptionally inspiring, as always. And if I can allow me one supplemental question, one inspiration statement you said years ago, Mogens, was embrace the mistakes you make. When a customer is dissatisfied, that's an opportunity to really cultivate a better relationship with your customer.
Absolutely. I mean, in Texas, our biggest account was the Frost Bank. And I get a call from our local distributor there, and they say that we got a huge problem with the Frost Bank. This branch is a disaster. He's never going to deal with us again. You know, I said, you got to call him. So I call him up. His name is Carl Bush. And he says, I don't even know why I'm talking with you, because we never intend to deal with this as our dirt company ever again. And he says, it's been a complete disaster, this project. So I said, can I come and see you? He said, you can, you know what I mean, but you're wasting your time. So I flew down the next day and met with him on site, and it was a disaster. It was installed poorly. That's the way it was. And so I said to him, give us 8 days and it'll be 100% perfect. I said, well, how are you going to replace all that product? I said, we don't need to replace any of it. The product's good. It's a shitty installation, you know, the quality of the installation. And we tore it down and rebuilt it, and they ended up being our biggest. They bought over $50 million from us, including the whole, on my learned friend's own property, the Cesar Pelli Tower that they're in for the Frost Bank. They became our biggest client. So yes, I mean, things go, we don't do, and the other thing about making mistakes, by the way, what can I say? F it up fast. You know, there's nothing worse than, like my father said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it never would have got built if there was engineers. You know what I mean? That, you know, is that go out there and make the mistakes and learn from those mistakes and agree, take the, what do you think is going to happen when you're innovating, right? You're going to have challenges. That's just the way it is. And, you know, perfection is way too high a standard for us. That's for darn sure. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? One more? No? Good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Before we leave, I just want to give you a couple announcements. The next Breakfast Club is with a company called Bolster, also out of Calgary. It's on October the 22nd. We get here at 8:30 and get going at 9, so hope to see you all there. The second one is InterGen cannot operate without our funders as a not-for-profit. We are funded historically by the top 7 over 70. Mogens has been a recipient of that last year. RBC, Cenovus, Sandstone Asset Management, Prairie Scan, CED, Calgary Economic Development, and Alberta Innovate. So if you're in the room, thank you very much for your support. Thanks and have a great rest of the day. We'll see you in a month's time. Great job. Thanks.